So here we are for session 3 of 5 this week. And so far they've been going great. Thanks to everyone who showed up and contributed, all the guests that we've had so far. Tonight we have Spencer Ayers, who is a good friend of mine, and he is a bit of a legend. He's been a teacher, so he's been there and done that. He's now a podcast host, a YouTuber. He does all sorts of online facilitation and workshops for major organizations, and he is going to be sharing some of his wisdom and tips with you guys. So hopefully, and I'm sure that is going to help a lot. In the previous sessions, if you want to catch up on those, the recordings will be out at the end of the week. I'll send an email around to everybody who has signed up for these sessions, and I'll send an email with the link for all the recordings, so you can catch up on those. The first night, Monday, I was the guest on my own thing, and I was talking about tips around video specifically, so how to present yourself on video to just instantly give you a better chance of more engagement and commanding more attention on screen. And then yesterday we had Matt Matheson, who's a speaking coach and a online facilitation coach, who shared his top tips for sort of getting organized for your workshops and engagement whilst you're running your workshops too. So what I'd love to do first is we've got a very small participation group tonight with Susan and Penny, who've kindly joined us, and I'm sure a lot more people will be watching the replay. So I'd like to just ask you guys, if possible, Susan and Penny, what have been your main challenges with this time so far, having to switch your lessons to online, use new technology and keep people engaged? I'd love to hear from I'm just gonna, if you don't mind, Susan, jump to you first because you're first on my screen, and I'd love to just have a chat with you about what have been your main challenges so far. What have you been finding difficult?
Kim, if I'm absolutely honest with you, I haven't been. I normally work within the supply agency, and because I'm also, as I said to you yesterday, trying as a hypnotherapist as well, I'm actually used to working online. I work online. I've been for a long time in terms of my hypnotherapy. And when I suppose the challenge for me came to when I started tutoring, because I tutor children. I had to stop working within the schools because of persons in my household who were vulnerable. So I couldn't actually go into the schools and couldn't go into classrooms. So for me, really, I started working online, obviously about a year ago now, when we went into lockdown the first time. And I think because I was already fairly confident working online, it wasn't too much of an issue. It's very different, obviously. I think it was really, I think for me, in terms of that context, the challenges that I was faced with was actually making sure I was well prepared beforehand, making sure the kids didn't get absolutely, that they didn't tire too quickly, keeping them entertained, keeping them engaged. So developing strategies whereby I could actually make sure they didn't get too tired, or we actually had a chance for them to have a bit of a break, whether it was doing a bit of exercising, as I mentioned yesterday, doing lots of fun things to keep them engaged. And actually one thing I felt was very, very important was actually help getting them to assess their learning with me as we went. So I have 2 girls that I work with at the moment, and in terms of teaching, and effectively they have a half an hour English and then I swap over with the other ones. So they only do half an hour with me at a time. But at the end of each half hour, depending on the subject I'm teaching them, I will get them with me to assess their learning. And we have very much a chart which they are involved in terms of their attention span, in terms of, so we're focusing on, they're very conscious of things they're going to be assessed on at the end, but they're part of the process. So I think it was making sure, for me, the challenge was actually making sure that they were attentive, they were engaged, they didn't get overtired, they were enjoying the experience.
Brilliant. So you've already been doing a lot of this stuff then for the last year. You had to sort of switch up earlier than a lot of people might have to have done. It'd be great to hear some more of your experience a bit later on.
Thank you.
And potentially drill down into some of those things that you said you sort of picked up. And I really like the thing about you you assessing the learning with them, so you get that chance to do that. I'm not sure if full class teachers will be able to do that, but you know, if there's an element of that that people could maybe take out of, to maybe just have a question at the end of the sessions, to, you know, the thing I did on the first session was just to ask everybody, if there's one takeaway, one tip, one thing you can remember from this, what would it be, and what would it be? You know, maybe that's like a very small bite-sized kind of version of what you're doing. So it'd be great to talk a bit about that a bit later on with you. But thanks for sharing that.
I totally appreciate what you're saying, because I was thinking about how you could adapt that. Well, we can chat about that later in terms of how you could adapt that within the classroom, you know, with a group session. Yeah, I think
Definitely.
It's possible, but in a different way. You're right.
And when people call you in your sessions, during your sessions, top tip, remember to put your phone on silent. So there you go. Actually, it wasn't my phone, it was my computer ringing, which happens now because I'm an Apple. My computer calls me and someone calls my phone, which I've not yet turned off, but I need to sort that out. Thanks for sharing, Susan.
Pleasure.
Penny, it'd be great to hear what your main sort of worries or issues or problems have been so far.
Okay, well, I've not done any online learning so far. I've been in schools, and I tutor the same as Susan, and I've been in houses since the first lockdown, really. So this is all very new to me, which is why I'm jumping on the bandwagon very quickly and here every night. So I was supposed to be tutoring a year 11 girl as from last Monday, and it's all going to be moving online now. So I'm here to pick up any tips, because I kind of feel that, I mean, I don't know the type of people that Susan's working with, but I kind of feel that the ones that will be coming my direction are the ones that are going to be the hardest to engage. They've all got SEN, they've all got communication, emotional problems. So to keep them focused and interested and learning online just sort of frightens me a little bit, because as you were saying last night, it's a tiring business being online. My only experience of Zoom is with my family, and that is just a horrible experience. Not ones that I enjoy doing at all. We've done about 3 or 4 of them, and I just find the whole experience of when someone else talks, the other person's cut out, and I just need lots of tips and lots of ways to engage, really.
And so what if you had to sort of drill down of your one main worry, or one thing that you'd love to have help with, what would that be?
Matthew was talking last night about making sure that you've got lots of different types of media going on. So I'm computer literate. I worked in software houses and hardware houses and all sorts of things, but I don't know how to do it in this environment, which is why I joined today, because I got a feeling that Spencer is going to be able to help me.
Would help if I unmuted myself. There's a good start. And I think
Hello,
Kim's done the
Spencer.
same as well. Fingers crossed we can go through that with you. Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, Spencer.
Doesn't matter how many times you do it, you still forget. It's the line of 2020. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? I was actually muting in between. My little girl's having a little bit of a cry in the other room, unfortunately. And it tends to, that kind of tone tends to just break through everything else, doesn't it?
Sure.
I'm going to hover over the mute hotkey as much as I can. So how to use tools, extra tools for engagement.
And just how do you deliver it? I mean, I'm an experienced teacher in the classroom. I can do it outside, but I've never done it here.
Okay. Well, hopefully we can help you with that. Nicola has just joined us. Nicola, if what I was asking these guys is what have been either the main problem you've found, the main difficult you've found in teaching online so far, or something that, or if you haven't started yet, then what would be your main worry? If you don't want to join in, that's fine too, Nicola. Just pop something in the chat box. Just say I'll sit out, and that's not a problem at all. But if you would care to let us know, that'd be really cool. If you unmute yourself and let us know, that'd be awesome.
Hi, thank you very much for the invitation to speak. Yes, I would just echo absolutely what Penny's just said, really. I'd really appreciate this. It's all very new world to me, and I would just appreciate any help, guidance, direction that anyone can give. That's just brilliant. And thank you very much for organising these sessions. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
No problem. So thanks, Nicola. But what I'd just like to try and poke you a little bit more. And if you could think of, have you, so just let me see, have you done online, have you been hosting online lessons this week or last week?
No, I'm a supply teacher, and we're in the middle of moving house, and so at the moment I'm feeling very redundant.
So you're just sort of trying to get in gear and prepared for when you do have to do these things.
Exactly.
Okay, fair enough. Is there anything that specifically worries you about the whole delivering online?
Well, absolutely. It's a very new experience, and I've found the 2 sessions that you've had already immensely helpful. Just the practicalities of computer positioning, lighting, colours of jumpers that you wear. really just simple tips which actually make a big difference. So thank you very much, and I'm all ears for the next session. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that.
Good question. Just going on from a conversation I had with teachers this afternoon.
Sure.
Are either Kim or Spencer, are you teachers or not?
No, I'm not a teacher. Well, I'm a teacher to adults, and I teach online video and DIY video and everything to do with people filming videos of themselves or being on video themselves. And that's what I teach. But I teach that usually to like more of commercial, companies and brands and sort of businesses. And the reason why I started to do this was because I had a couple of conversations with my brother. I've got nephews who are, being homeschooled and schooled through Zoom, and they've been really struggling with the engagement. And I've got friends who are teachers who said, who I was giving some tips to. She was like, yeah, all the teachers in my school, like lots of them are feeling anxious about knowing how to do this, take what they can do well in a classroom. They're all great teachers, but then having to, relearn how they do that, but in a different space, essentially. So I thought, why not bring together myself, who can give tips on the videos, and other people who have kindly volunteered, like Spencer, who are more from the business world, who have been doing this online stuff for quite a long time, to pass over the wisdom to teachers. But Spencer has been a teacher.
Okay, because 2 questions that came out of chatting to teachers this afternoon was, firstly, how I mean, you can comment on the government all you want, but how they are expected to suddenly, just with no training, just get out there and do online teaching, which, as you've just said, the teachers that I've just been with at school are incredibly anxious about delivering lessons online. They've had no training. They're expected to just get on with it. The other question that I would be interested if any of your other participants in the week could answer is, one of the questions that was thrown around today was, how are you expected to teach in the classroom all day and deliver online lessons? Which, the place I've just been is a tiny village school, and the teachers in there are there 8 till 4 or whatever, and then on top of that being asked to deliver online lessons, which seems just
that's a lot of pressure. It's kind of similar to the parents too, like the parents out there who are like, my kids are not actually at school. One's at nursery and one's a baby, as you heard, and parents are trying to work from home and help teach all at the same time, and just live normally with people in the house, trying to cook, clean, all the normal stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's just such a big challenge for everybody right now, which is why I'm hoping just to solve a few little problems that can make things a little bit easier. But I've written those questions down, and we'll come back to them when we have the more Q&A. This first bit, I just wanted to kind of get a gauge for what the issues were, and you've reiterated that people are anxious about this. So Spencer, just on your teaching experience, be great to just give that some context.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. Really great to be here, and I absolutely feel so much of the pain that people are going through, and those points that you just talked about there, Penny, I resonate with. I see it here in my own house. I've got 2 kids that are doing homeschooling at the moment. They're doing team lessons, team-based lessons. So it's a challenge. I see it from both sides. I was a teacher for 8 years. I taught IT, computer science, film and media, and various kind of other kind of creative ways of using technology. And I left the profession in about 2012. I think it was the Gove years, if anyone remembers those times. And challenging times. It was challenging times then, but it's even more challenging now. I see, as I see it. I think the thing that I've recognized from our own experience here with our kids, from this side, as you like, from the parent side, is the enormity of the challenge that teachers are facing at the moment. I'm an experienced remote online facilitator, and I've been doing this for a number of years, regardless of COVID or whatever else. But I know what it's like to train 10 adults that want to be there and are engaged and are kind of there for a real reason, let alone 30 kids and their parents often that are all trying to clamber for the internet connection. Often the challenge of engagement is there as well. So I really do empathize with that enormous challenge. And I think, to the point of, without going too much down the rabbit hole of any policy or governmental issues, it does feel like teachers are being left in the lurch to combat this entirely on their own. And so I think initiatives like this that Kim's been able to set up, hopefully we can get this message a bit more widespread. And if there are more things like this that we can be doing, we're absolutely want to look at what else we can do and bring more people involved in it. But hopefully that little bit of, I was a teacher. I did actually a master's in creative and media education a few years ago. Actually, that was a catalyst for me leaving the teaching profession, ironically. But the reason for that was that it opened my eyes to these other worlds of learning and other ways of educating people. And I was kind of felt a little bit constrained with what I was able to do in the classroom back then, and wanted to kind of explore other opportunities, which I now, again, coming all the way back full kind of circle, I'm now hopefully able to share some of that practice that I've had over the last few years back to the teaching profession a little bit. So it's really great to be able to do that.
Wicked. Thanks, Spencer.
No worries, Kim.
I'm going to switch you as host, Spencer, and then so that you're free to screen share and stuff like that. So if you just want to rip into it, Spencer, and give us a few tips that you've picked up along the way, that would be awesome. And then we'll have some more time for some questions after.
Absolutely. And I know that in previous sessions, Kim's been incredibly well prepared with slides and these kinds of things. My preparation really amounts to a notebook and some scribbles this afternoon in between some of the workshops that I've been running.
Plus the many years of all of the experience you've just
it's all in there.
It's all in there
somewhere. Yeah. But what I shall do is I'll share my screen and talk through a couple of tools. I think what I'll do is talk through a couple of different tools that I use that can hopefully help engagement, help to do things in different ways, and might be something new that your students might not have seen before. Some tools I think that may help you directly as well and get that kind of confidence as well. And I'll also kind of throw in, I mean, I've probably got a list of, when Kim and I we were talking about a list of 5 things. I've probably got a list of about 15 things. So I might be throwing them all at you, but I might just kind of keep some back and whatever. So we'll just see how things go. But I'll go ahead and share my screen right now. This one. So hopefully what you can see on your screen now is a big whiteboard with a couple of what looks like post-it notes. So looks like I've got that. If you want, what would be really great is if you could just give me an emoji maybe into the chat. That would be absolutely fantastic, just to give me the kind of nod that we're on the same page. So if you want to just go to everyone and pop into the chat an emoji or a 1 or anything, just to say, yes, we've got it. Perfect. Thank you, Kim. Oh, I've got a little tip for you, one that I'd forgotten. But I'm a big fan of emojis. I don't know whether you are, but I know that kids can be as well. And it can be an interesting and kind of fun way to engage people. There's a shortcut to bring up an emoji keyboard. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but I can give you that shortcut now. if you're on a Windows machine, so most people I'd imagine are on Windows machine, you can click the window logo key, probably at the bottom left, I think it is, if I remember, and the full stop. I hope this works. I've not got a Windows keyboard with me, but the Windows key and the full stop should bring up an emoji keyboard, and then you can click on one of those emojis and see what that looks like. On a Mac, it's slightly different. I've got a Control and Command and space, and that means that I can do an emoji like that. But anyway, there we go. If you got that one, absolutely wonderful. But what you can see here is it's a piece of software called Miro. And what Miro is really a giant whiteboard, a whiteboard that you can put Post-it notes on, you can draw on it, you can write things. It's kind of an infinite digital space to create things and to collaborate with people. So what I've just done here, I said that I was, and I said this to Kim at the beginning, I want to do something which hasn't been well prepared, but hopefully show you how you can muddle through and kind of plan something out together. So what I did here was just started to get these Post-it notes and start to put the challenges and difficulties that we're facing. But what I wanted to do was use this as a way to show you how you could start to gather thoughts from a whole group of people. So all over the classroom, everybody could contribute to this and can actually access this completely separately to Zoom or Teams or anything else that you're using. You can use this Miro board. So one thing I could do here is just make some Post-it notes that of the things that I'm talking about. So I could say intro, oh, if I could type, that would be good. Intro Miro as a thing that we're doing. And I'm just going to kind of talk through and walk through this idea of using something like this. Now, how could you use this? That's one of the big questions that that you might have. One thing that I find really difficult at times and really challenging, and I think to Penny's point about the kind of Zooms with families and these kinds of things, sometimes it's a real challenge to know like when you should talk. Everyone's trying to talk at the same time, then nobody talks, and then somebody talks, and everyone, you know, it's that classic thing that you see, you know, in comedy sketches now, because it happens so often. Actually, discussion is great, but in online spaces, discussion is really challenging. In fact, in classroom spaces, discussion can be challenging as well. Getting people to either communicate or to not communicate at the right times is a real challenge. But something like this, you could get some interesting kind of conversations happening, albeit through text, but in a slightly different way. So you could perhaps use this to pose a question, and it could be that you just write some text into the middle and you just say, how was your day? And then people could just add in a Post-it note to say, great, or, you know, awful. And just that way of just starting to break down some of those barriers of participation. When I was working a lot on my master's, for example, at that time, it was probably 2010-ish. We had Facebook, and you mentioned the word Facebook into schools, and you would almost be thrown out. You can't talk about using Facebook in schools. And of course, that was understandable back then. And it's still understandable in many ways right now. But instead of we do still have a technology divide where people don't have access to technology. But even more than that sometimes is the participation gap. It's getting people to actively engage. It's getting people to actually participate in the lesson rather than sit back and not want to be involved. Things like this can be really great because they can be a bit more anonymous. It can be a light touch way of getting involved. And it can just mean that people start to engage a bit more freely. And it's just those starting points that can be so helpful. I think one of the worst things that you can do is just run too full on, go in too strong. And then that's going to really make that, particularly those anxious children, anxious students, it's just going to put them even more into their shell, and they're going to be even more difficult to get them to participate. So little things like this can really help, I think, in kind of breaking down some of those barriers of participation. I'm going to pause for a second and just get a little slurp of water.
Whilst you do that, Spencer, I love this tool, by the way. And there's similar tools like this with like your Post-it style. I was just going to ask for those who might not know, be new to technology and this kind of technology as a whole. You know, with something like a Miro board, is it something that you could send a link and people could just open straight away and access it, or do they have to sign up to an account? Is there a level of pre-preparation you need to do to give people in order for them to use this?
No, it's a great question. And the way that you can do it is set these boards up so that they're free to participate on. So you can give, if I give this quickly, the only way I need to share it is just give it a quick test. And then I can make it open so that anybody can access without needing to sign in. So at the moment, no one can sign in. I just need to open it up so that everybody can edit. And then if I shared this now with you, so I can copy this board link and paste it into the chat, and now everyone can now access this board directly without needing to sign in. It's entirely free as well. I think there's a limit on how many boards you can have, but it is free. I've also just added into this board, and maybe we'll make a resource link after this or something like that, Kim, of other options. So you've got Miro, which is this one that I use day in, day out. There's another one called Mural. There's another one called Jamboard, which is by Google. In fact, Jamboard's I probably should have used that because it's even more simple, and it's really easy to kind of get going with as well. So yeah, no signups, and that I've made sure that all the tools that I'm going to be presenting here are free. You might have to sign up as a teacher, but they'll be free for kind of some kind of limited access use at least. I'm going to just quickly, I'm kind of conscious of time. I want to get through as much as I can, but I also don't want to bombard everybody. So if it does become too overwhelming, then just kind of raise a flag, poke me some way to kind of tell me just to slow down. That's absolutely fine. But I wanted to take a bit of a step back and think about the role of a teacher as well. And this is something that I've thought about a huge amount over the past probably 20 odd years. When I was teaching, we often had these discussions around the teacher as a facilitator or teacher as kind of font of all knowledge. And there's definitely been this trend in teaching towards teachers as enablers, teachers as facilitators of individual learning happening, as opposed to the more traditional view of teaching, which is that kind of broadcast out, stand at the front of the lectern, stand at the front of the classroom and be that kind of font of all knowledge. I think what my instinct and my having experienced online communities and online learning much more is that push towards facilitation is even greater. What I say, the kind of things that I talk about are getting into a mindset of not being the hero in the story. And I'm probably already preaching to the converted. I don't want to teach anybody to suck eggs or anything like that. But equally, I think it's really important to remember that we're really there to enable other people to improve themselves, other people to learn what they need to do in order to get on in the wider world, in order to pass the exams that they need and all those kinds of things. So if we can try to figure out how to get into that mindset of enabling other people, those people to learn in the best way, that's absolutely, I think, a really good frame mindset or mind frame of mind to kind of step into, if that makes sense. I'm also saying that slightly with the irony of me taking on that exact approach of telling you everything that I know rather than trying to engage you and bring you on as individual learners. But that's the nature of this call, I think, a bit. So just that kind of stepping back, thinking of yourself as the facilitator of other people's story and the facilitator of their own learning, I think is a really helpful mindset to kind of focus on.
I think that's a really good point, and especially, you know, in the digital space, because as you say, like if you are at the front of a class and you're sort of broadcasting, then you know you're right there, so it's harder for people to waver off. Whereas if you're through a screen and they have got at home with lots of other distractions, then it is so much easier for people to be distracted and not engaged. So, you know, it's all really is about just being engaging as much as possible. And that was one of the tips I said the other day, was just, you know, consistently calling out people's names, looking into the camera and sort of saying, hey, Susan, can you let us know what you think of this Jamboard now, or whatever it might be, to really just keep people on their toes and keep people, you know, engaged in that way. Because as you say, like this role of a facilitator, that's what it's much more poignant when you're doing that online.
Yeah, it's a really great point, actually, Kim. I remember when I was doing some workshops with the company, they're based in Canada, actually. So I don't know whether it was a Canadian thing or the Canadian expression that I'd not heard it before. But in an online space, it's very difficult to get people to volunteer to say stuff. And so if you just say, so what does everybody think? Then you'll either get silence or you'll get everyone shouting at the same time, and it can just lead to chaos. But actually this expression that I heard, which I really liked, was voluntold. So you, so instead of getting people to volunteer, you're voluntelling someone to participate into it, rather than saying, tell me this thing, you're kind of, I'm gonna, can you tell me what that thing is? So voluntold, I think, is a kind of a good way to try to be it. It's a bit soft, feels a bit softer, and it feels a bit nicer. I think other things, I'm just trying to fly through a bit of a list here. With things like Teams or with Zoom or Google Hangouts or any of these other online facilitations, there are a number of tools. I'm sure you've talked about or seen, we do have the chat function. We do have things like hands up in Teams, etc. And I think those kind of tools can be used. One of the things to think about, perhaps in the preparation phase and when you're preparing how to do this, but equally ad hoc on the fly as well, is try to mix up how you want people to engage. Maybe turn to the chat at one moment and get people to type in. Maybe turn to an online board like we've got here with Miro. Maybe turn to the kind of voluntelling to get that kind of vocal side of it moving through as well. So just trying to mix up those different activities. We want people to engage, and if you know your students particularly well, perhaps think about how they would want to engage as well. Some people feel very comfortable on camera, some people less so. Let's not put them in difficult positions that they don't want to be in. Let's instead think about how we can get that engagement, that participation, but it's kind of on their terms a little bit as well. I think that can be something which is very useful. Okay, I'm going to introduce another tool. And this one is a tool that can be used for you, but it also can be a tool that your students can use as well. And it's a tool called Loom, not to be confused with Zoom. Loom, and I'm just going to bring this over here now. So hopefully you can still see this. I'm still sharing everything. Good. Got a nod, thumbs up, good to see. Thumbs up is also a great thing. If you've got people's screens on, it just gives you that little boost as a facilitator or as a teacher. You're like, yeah, they get it. Fantastic. Cool. So what Loom is all about is making videos, actually. And it's a tool which enables you to record what you're doing on the screen, but also records your face, your camera as well. And it records both of those things at the same time. I'm just going to show you very quickly what exactly this looks like when I record. So this just comes out. There's a little tiny bit of setup to do, but it's very, very small, really. It's not a problem. You just got to download a little bit of software and the rest of it is all online. It picks up your audio and the video that you're using as well. And then you can record for free for 5 minutes. Now, I'm going to set it recording. I'm going to share this screen and it gives me a bit of a countdown, 3, 2, 1, and then it will start. And you can see that what I've got here is in the bottom right-hand corner, there's the vision, the image of me, and that will stay there. That will be exactly what people see. But I can then start to record all of the screen activity that I do as well. Now, a couple of ways that you can use this. It's a really great tool and it's being used much more across lots of different kind of learning tools and learning engagements as well. But one of the really great things with this is that it can be good for your practice. And I'm a firm believer, and I've talked to my daughter about this all the time, that practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes progress. And what we're really looking for is that practice in order to get better. So if you are, or if you do have students who are not comfortable, maybe use something like Loom to record a little video, and it can just be for yourself. Nobody else has to see this at all. But watching your video, you'll become, it takes a bit of time, becoming more familiar with how you look and how you sound particularly, but actually it can be really helpful to improve your practice. And so I recommend something like Loom to do that. I'm going to pause it. Maybe I'll do another Loom about all the tools that we've been using today. But it's a really good way to kind of build up that confidence, because again, it's so daunting when you're presenting to anybody. I feel like it's a performance in many ways when you're teaching, but actually to get that kind of creative muscle going, and also the confidence factor, I think it can be a really great tool. I think it's absolutely fantastic to use as a tool for students as well, because it's free. There's should be very, anyone that's got technology and the internet can access it, and they could do little assignments. They could talk through some of the ideas that they've got. They could do a PowerPoint instead of submitting one of those boring PowerPoints that we see so often. Maybe they could just talk into the video and show some pictures off the internet or something like that, just to do something a bit different. I think that, those kind of things can really help, and it can really help with the confidence for people being on camera as well. So Loom is a brilliant thing.
I think it's a great tool to introduce. And one of the things that came up yesterday is using other videos in your lessons, so using other media within your lessons. And one of the things that's done a lot now is sort of obviously in the business world, where everyone's trying to be more efficient and take less time to deliver their value, is that if there is something that you feel like you're going to be teaching over and over again, then there's a potential there to create a video of actually that piece of the lesson and just show people the video rather than just going through it live every time. That could save you time, give you a little break. If you know that this part of the lesson's coming up and you have to show them how to use something on the computer, or just introduce something, you could create a video of that. If you know you're going to have to do that twice a week for the next however many months, then you could potentially record a little video of it and just use that video then to play during your sessions rather than having to repeat it. Give yourself a break, and it might just be another form of medium, and they get to see your face in a different part of the screen. And again, it's just switching it up and making something a little bit different. So it could be used in that way too.
I think that's such a good point, Kim. And this is the kind of, you may be familiar with this idea of the flipped learning, or have you heard of the flipped learning? Can I get a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Okay. Thumbs down. Fantastic. Don't worry about the concept. It's more about what the underlying principles really, or what it's called. Essentially, flipped learning is turning the environment of learning on its head. So rather than spending the time in a lesson delivering from the front of the classroom and telling everybody all of the great information that they need to know, is there a way that you can do that in a different way, like the video, exactly what Kim's talked about, and then use the actual session time to engage and build on that knowledge, build on that fundamental knowledge? Is there a way, in fact, that you could get people to do something maybe even in their own time? I know that's might not be achievable, might not be doable, but instead of setting homework where they've got to write stuff, maybe the homework is to watch the video in advance before the lesson. And so therefore they're getting that fundamental knowledge, they're coming prepared, and they kind of know what's going to be happening. And that might be good for the kind of levels of uncertainty and that kind of thing for people as well. So yeah, see if you can flip it around, change the normal way of delivering your kind of 3-part lesson, and maybe give the knowledge thing in a different kind of way.
That's a bit like a pre-teach.
Pre-teach, absolutely, you got it. Yeah, different terminology, exactly that. Perhaps if you can give that, and especially if you're delivering the similar lesson to many people or many times over, brilliant to be able to do that once, so that you can get them to do it, and then you can maximize the opportunity that you do have with them when they're all there. Great idea. One thing to watch out for that I've only actually realized, I kind of learned this a while ago and forgot it, and then I've realized it with my own kids doing their homeschooling, is that be careful when you are playing a video through Teams or YouTube or Zoom or anything like that, because if you're playing it and you're trying to cast your screen or share your screen of the video, very often it's very glitchy, very stuttery video that comes back, and you'll be pretty familiar with this, I'm sure. What I've seen, and okay, my kids are much younger, my son's in year 1, but what I've seen is he is instantly turned off as soon as he gets that stuttering video, and it's so hard to get him back focused and back into the room. It's really, really difficult. And so that beginning point of a lesson particularly, which is often where these kind of YouTube videos or whatever are played, just seem to be falling flat. And so what I would say is, can we share that link in advance? Can we put it into the chat so that you can give people an allocated period of time, 5 minutes? If it's a 4-minute video, give them 5 minutes to watch it. Put everybody onto mute, but they watch it themselves through YouTube, if that's okay. With safeguarding and everything else that we've got to think about, I'm just kind of wary of some of these things. But rather than trying to cast it through the Zoom or through the software, that can really pose some difficulties.
That is a good point, and that popped up last night as well. Yeah. through playing videos, because yeah, as you say, you get the stutter in, and it's not nice for anyone, let alone young kids who then just switch off. So one of the things was suggested last night is you, as you said, you post the link, ask everybody to just really break it down step by step, rather than say, I watched that video, like really break it down and say, no one touched the link yet, no one press it. What we're going to do next is after 3, we're going to go 3, 2, 1, and we're going to press play, you know, and or do any little steps they might have to take. And this goes across all of anything that you're asking people to do in order to participate, like with a mirror board or anything. If you try and break down, what I've found is if you say, oh, can you go on there and put a post-it up, it's just going to be chaos. Whereas if you say, well, what I'd like everybody to do next is to click that link and do nothing else, and then you wait, everybody in, yes, no, right, now what I'd like you to do is click that, and it literally break any technical instructions down into just very, very small steps, and wait till you always get people who can't, who can't find it, or something doesn't work, and you just want to reassure those people, don't worry, we're here and we're doing it. And it's a fine balance between the other people then waiting for them, but it's definitely going to work out better if you break it down in small chunks of instructions, rather than giving them people in the video case, giving people a video and then saying, right, watch that video. It's got to be really, really explicit. But I'm sure you guys know that probably already.
I think just to bring in some of the thoughts, has made me think of a concept that I use a lot when I'm because I design quite a lot of digital products as well, and we use a thing called KISS, KISS, which is keep it simple, stupid. And don't ever say that to your kids, obviously, but keep that in mind. Keep it as simple as you can. Any instruction, don't fire loads. We know these kinds of things. We don't want to ask things in lots of different ways or make things too complex, but just keep it super simple. And I think that's another kind of holistic tip for us as well, is thinking about those expectations, particularly if you're just starting to do online learning. Don't have wild expectations that you're going to be able to cover what you would normally cover in a day. It's probably not going to happen. Just cut things in half and just get a few things done really well, get people engaged. If that is the primary focus for the first session, fantastic, because the next sessions are going to follow on and run much more freely and be more flowing. So just keep those expectations to small things. If I think about my kids at the moment, if they get 1 or 2 things done each day, then I'm pretty happy with that, And I think that's the kind of attitude. You will have all this pressure. Have you got through the curriculum? Have you got through all the content we need to get through? All those kinds of things. But you need to be thinking about yourselves and them, and making sure that, not for it to be too slow, but that we're just keeping those expectations managed. I'm going to fly through into another tool. Going to throw another tool at you. And I don't know whether this is going to be useful for you or not, but I'm going to talk through it very quickly. I'm going to share my screen really quickly again here. And this is a tool, hopefully you can see this, called Trello. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Called Trello. Now, I've used Trello a huge amount over the years, and it's really great for planning, but it can also be really good for showing people what you're going to be doing. Now, I've got this very simple board at the moment. It's 3 boards here of things to do, things we're doing, and things we've done. That's it. Very simple. And all I did when I was thinking about this earlier was, all right, I'm going to do 3. If I do 3 things in this session, I'm going to be really happy. I'll introduce myself. I'll introduce some technology tools, and we'll perhaps have some questions and answer some questions. So what I've done, I have managed to introduce myself. So I can take this card. I should have put it into doing, but I've done it now, and I've moved it right over here. I'm introducing some tech tools. So we're doing this at the moment, and I haven't quite got onto the Q&A. Now, the reason I show you this is we probably all know that kids like to know what's coming. And in fact, we all like to know what's coming. We like that signposting of where we're going, what's coming next, how long have we got for this activity, those kinds of things. And so this can be a really great way for you to show people what you're going to be doing in a slightly different approach. And it's a bit more fun. It's a bit more interactive. And what I would say is, try this out. Maybe try it and show people this kind of, just putting in these different cards. It's very easy to use. I can add another card here, type something in here, press enter, and there it is. And then it's just simply a matter of moving it around. It's really quick and easy, free to sign up, all those kinds of things as well. Now, for those really, when you get familiar with this, you get used to it. It's an incredible tool for collaboration. I've used this with 100 people at a time on one board, where everyone's moving these cards around from different ways. You can get so creative and do so many different things with it. Not necessarily with the tables of things to do, things we've done and things we're doing, but in other ways you can call these anything you want. So maybe it could be a brainstorming activity and you want people to come up with new ideas for how to, I don't know, how to solve world hunger or whatever it is. And you can start to use something like this as a different way of interacting with people. Again, it's just another tool for your kind of tool belt, if you like. So I actually did use this in the classroom way back in about just before I left. And it was quite a contentious thing that I was doing, but what I actually did was use this to plan a term's worth of work with my A-level students. So instead of me saying, right, here's my scheme of work, here's the curriculum, the scheme of work, my daily lesson plans and all those kind of things, what we did was collectively read through what we needed to do during that term and what the curriculum was all about. And we planned a term's worth of work together. Now, a lot of people thought it was a dreadful idea, but those kids went from E's and D's the previous year with a different teacher to A's and B's in that year because they were able to own their learning. They were able to take it on themselves rather than being demanding on a teacher. They really thrived and they flourished in I'm still in touch with these kids now because they are doing amazing things because they had that trust. I gave them the trust and the confidence to be able to do this. So I'm going to leave that there. I'm happy to talk more about these kinds of things anytime as well. So we'll share details and you can get back in touch with me.
Can I ask Spencer again? How do you get that to? How does everyone get that?
So I can share this. I was going to say really easily. I just forgotten exactly where the button is, so I'm going to have to try to remember this now. Where do I go to? Oh goodness, I should have been prepared for this one, shouldn't I? Where's planning? Okay, so I've got it as private, so I can change it to a public board. I can make it public now, so it's set as public, and then I can invite people to this board as well. So what I'll perhaps do is, we've got your details, so I'll do a little Loom video about how exactly to do this to make sure it's not unclear. And I'm conscious of your time as well. We're getting towards 5 o'clock, but you can share it as a list and they don't need to log in or anything like that. People can just click on a link and it'll go straight to that board. I've just Kim, do you remember this? Create a board. I can't quite remember.
I've used Trello for my sort of, not necessarily for online lessons, for sort of business stuff. So I'm not the biggest knowledge base on Trello at all. But it's one of those things. One of the things I mentioned at the beginning of the lesson on Monday, the first one was that the sort of curve of I don't know, we'll call it the curve of anxiety around doing anything new like this. It's like the technology is the first thing we go, how do I do that? Where's the button? But it's one of those things. Sorry, I've got chaos going on in the upper room. It's one of those things where once you're shown it once and you do it once, you kind of remember. I say that, and Spencer's forgotten. But if it's something that you're doing over and over again, the technology, it feels to most people like the technology is the barrier. But actually, the technology becomes less of a barrier quite quickly, and the barrier becomes the creative ideas around how to just keep people engaged and keep people interacting with things. So things like this, where there's a certain tool and you need to know how to do one thing. If it would take any of us literally 5 seconds to Google how do you share a Trello board, and we'll be able to do it, but it's knowing that sharing a Trello board is the thing in the first place that's the thing that contributes to that creative bank of ideas of ways you can use to engage people. So with any of these technical things, if we haven't got quite on the money with like, here's the exact buttons to press, when I'm teaching videography and when I'm teaching video, that is the same thing. Like, people always say, well, how do I use this app? And I'm like, well, don't worry about the app for now. Don't worry about the buttons on the app for now. Just understand the principles, and then you'll know then what you're actually searching for to be able to research these things. So yeah, I just find that, I think with anything that is like a technical problem, it's that stuff is really, really easy to research and find most of the time. And it's the stuff that is more the sort of experience based stuff that we're hoping to get more across of, I think. That said, I won't show you how to use it, but I just wanted to add one tool before we have some questions towards the end, which is something that's really helped me. And it's called Lesson Timer. And it's a free app. Essentially, you can just put in your different parts of your lesson. So intro, feedback from students, whatever it might be, and assign a time. So if you do have like, an hour for a lesson and you're like, I've got to teach all this stuff, it's really easy to sort of go off topic. With that Lesson Timer app, you can put in your times and it can sit there and just really keep you sort of on your schedule and help you to just itemize your things that you're trying to cover in that lesson, and you can pre-plan the amount of time you give for that. So that was that Lesson Timer. It's got a kind of green circle as an icon, webcam focus. That's a nice little tool that I've found. So I just thought I'd throw that in the mix. So for these last few minutes, Spencer, if it's right with you, if anything came up there in terms of questions, guys, it'd be great to for you guys to have a chance to ask those.
Is there some sort of whiteboard facility that you would recommend?
For me, I think in terms of whiteboard, probably the best one that I've come across is a thing called Jamboard. You
spoke about that, didn't you?
Yeah, so the one I showed you earlier with the post-it notes, that can be used to draw on and all those kinds of things. But also Jamboard it's a Google-owned product now, but it's very, very easy to use. I've just quickly got it up here. You just need well, I don't even think you need a Google account. You can use any account, but if you've got a Google account, Gmail or anything like that, then it will work automatically. You just do a search for Jamboard. I think it's jamboard.google.com. And I'll just really quickly actually show you this, just so that you've got a picture of what it is. So this is the Jamboard. So we can click on something here. We can draw. We could add in a sticky note. And that just creates a sticky note up here. So you can use this as a tool for kids or for your students to use or for yourself to use, making ideas, all those kind of things as well. You can use you can create shapes and all kinds of things. So I think this is probably the most simple whiteboard type thing that I've come across, and it's really easy to access as well.
I've used that a lot.
Yeah, I'm quite conscious that I've just thrown so much at you, and I was just reflecting just now on, has that been too much? Has that actually created more overwhelm? I hope that's not the case. But what I would say is, if that is a feeling, then watch this back, because some of these elements, fast forward it, put it on double speed, whatever you need in order to kind of get to where you need to get to it. There'll be hopefully there's some things in here that you might have missed or whatever. So I just say, relax with it, let it go, and just try one or two things in each lesson. Don't try and do too much. Just maybe go, well, I'm going to try this, and think about how you could learn more as well about your practice. Now, I'm a firm believer in prototyping and testing things. It's basically what I do and what I teach mostly now. Just prototype something, just try something. And what I mean by prototyping it is just have a go and try it. And I think one of the other things, the final point that I wanted to make is there's a thing called a retrospective that I do a lot. And this is whenever I've got a team of people or a group of people, we get together and we talk about how we work together. We don't talk about the work that we did. We don't critique our work. We don't give each other feedback about the actual work. It's how did we work together? And I think this can be a really great way for you to open up to students and say, well, how did that go for you? Did that work? Did you like this bit? Did the Jamboard thing, was that more engaging than doing it on pen and paper? Just open up those lines of communication as much as possible. Doesn't need to be anything big, but I do this thing about retrospective. What could we do better? What worked well? You know, and what do we definitely want to stop and never do again?
I think that's a really important, really good point to add, actually, Spencer. You know, just everyone's kind of on the same team right now, that we've got all these challenges, and it, you know, trying to find ways to connect yourselves and the students and the parents to go, like, we've all got to try and get through this together. So yeah, opening that dialogue of like what's been most fun, I think, is a great idea, and I'm sure some people are doing it all already, but if they're not, I would say that is probably one of the most important things you can do, is at the end of sessions or the end of the week, having a chance to actually reflect with the students as to how it's going and what they enjoyed most. Not only from then, if you've got to rely on your judgment through the screen about what's working, what's not, but just actually hearing from them. So I think that's a great point. Does anybody else have any more questions this evening before we go?
No questions, but I just wanted to thank you so much. It's been absolutely brilliant, and having been voluntold earlier in the session, I just wanted to really thank you for giving up your time, and also to your wife, Kim, as well, and your children, for letting you give up your time, and to do this for free to help dancers like me out there. I am so grateful. So, and you're an absolutely brilliant facilitator and teacher, Spencer. Thank you very much.
Yes, I'd like to reiterate that as well, please. Thanks very much, Spencer. Thank you, Kim, as well.
No problem. I've, you know, I just felt the urge to sort of help a bit, you know, and I could see that there's a problem. It's a large problem everywhere, and like a lot of people, you're kind of left just to get on with it. And I think one of the questions that came up at the beginning from Penny was, you know, how we expected to do this. And I think that there is a massive, I think that there's a massive expectation, or a perception of an expectation. I mean, I'm sure they're giving you curriculum and giving you work and giving you the boxes to tick. But if you think about it collectively, between the parents, the kids, yourselves, your teachers, I don't want to get political and steer anyone off down the wrong path with any of this, but my opinion, sort of, here's my 10 pence on it. It's like everyone's struggling with the expectation. Everyone's struggling with the reality and the practicality of teaching kids at home and all of this stuff. So I think overall is, you know, I know that there are curriculums there and there's things that you have to do. But I think that it's kind of like, imagine every day everyone just said, you know what, we're not going to pay it. We're not going to put our money in the parking ticket machine. We're just going to park. They're not going to give us all tickets. It's kind of a little bit of that. Like, look, if none of it, you know, the reality is if everyone's struggling, we can all be in the same team and sort of just go easy on yourselves and know that other people need to go easy on themselves too. So I think that's just something we need to remember through all this, is that everyone's sort of having similar challenges. So the level, try and ease the level and the weight and the level of expectation off your shoulders a little bit. That's all I'll say about it. I didn't want to get too political.
I think that
you all to just jack it in.
Kim, I think what you were saying and what Spencer was saying as well, the importance of keeping it really simple. And I think helping the kids recognize that we're all, you know, that the teacher as well, the kids might be feeling anxious, but the kids, it's probably good for the kids to understand the teachers. For some of them, this is actually a learning process for them as well. And I think, you know, as long as you've got, as Spencer was saying, it's ordered, you know, you set your priorities, you actually have, you recognize that, you know, at the same time, although it's fantastic online, it has limitations. We just need to be conscious of the fact that of them, you know, not pushing them too hard, or actually making sure they have breaks and fun breaks and making it fun. Even if we don't actually always achieve our objectives, the important thing is they feel inspired to learn and they enjoy the experience and want to come back to it.
For sure.
One final thought, and then one suggestion. One final thought is, often, I remember when we first started to talk about online learning, well, perhaps not first, but, you know, over the last 10 or 15 years, perhaps, And the natural instinct is often to try to emulate what you do in the classroom. But actually, that's not always the best approach. So think about what those constraints of the technology are and try to play towards them. And I know that's a big kind of lofty and not very helpful thing for actual tips and tricks, but some of the things that we've done here, you wouldn't do necessarily in a classroom. And that's what I was trying to get to, and probably should have said at the beginning was, don't try to recreate a classroom activity necessarily. Some of them work really well, but a lot of them just don't work in an online environment. The final thing was the suggestion is that, Kim, am I right in that Jim is doing tomorrow? Jim Raleigh.
Jim Raleigh is, yeah.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine as well, and he's phenomenal. He's an expert facilitator, coach, learning designer, all these things. And so I'm tempted to jump in with that because I think I always learn something from Jim. So that would be my recommendation, is to definitely join him.
And that's a great segue for me to just quickly, could you pop me back as host for a second there, mate? I'm just going to share what we've got going on the last 2 sessions, as much for the recordings as well. So just on these recordings, I know lots of people have been asking for them. I'm getting them online, and as soon as I get them up there, everybody who's signed up, I will send a link out and they'll be publicly available to watch and share, and people can catch up that way. I just wanted to, just share what we've got coming up tomorrow. So Jim Raleigh, he's a learning experience and online facilitation designer and expert, and a real cool dude. He's tomorrow, and then we've got Carol on Friday, who's currently a deputy head teacher and an experienced education coach, who's going to come and share with us her what she's found is working as well so far, and some of her top tips. So please, again, share this with colleagues, share that link that I sent around in the email. And thanks so much, Spencer, for coming and joining this last minute and helping me out on this. I'm not sure how I would have filled 5 days on my own. So it's great to get different perspectives, and especially yours, having had a foot in both worlds, and sharing that wisdom with us and all those tools. Thanks very much. Thanks, everyone, for coming, and good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Kim and
everybody.
Spencer.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Spencer. Thanks,
Goodbye.
Kim. Bye. Bye.
Cheers.